And are you refreshed? Good. Now what? We're appreciating those who have come before, yes, and all that they have stirred up, troublemakers that they are, right here. Yeah.
I came here wanting to know and have a connection with Source, and the first dialogue pretty much answered that. But what came up was something that I've had for some time, and that was like bridging really my love for physical, my love for everything about this hotel, how it's built, driving here, the bridges, and beautiful cars, beautiful houses. And I just feel that I love the physical so much.
Yeah. Well, it's the furthest extension of that which is Source. The physical is the furthest extension of that which is Source. Source is right there, involved in every aspect of all of that wonderful stuff.
Yes, and I can feel that. But I feel that I have, it seems like it's a conundrum that I'm in, because you're asking me to think on a vibrational level, and that resonates very strongly with me. So I'm trying to resonate on a high physical level, like up the emotional scale, so that I can manifest my physical stuff.
Well, the thing what we're wanting to help you to bridge, so as you explore and define this beauty, the things that appeal to you most, and then you find ways to get on that high-flying disc so that you find resonance with all that you've gathered. When you begin realizing the physical manifestations, we want you to know that that non-physical energy, that Source that you were wanting to find a relationship with, is enjoying it right there with you. Your greatest feelings, moments and feelings of appreciation are because you have fashioned your vibration in such a way that Source is literally participating in the beauty of whatever you have your attention upon.
So that's really good news for me.
It is, isn't it?
Wow, that's awesome. Because I see beauty in so many things.
It's interesting, though. You defined the exact process that we took with all of you in order to bring you to that realization. In other words, when we first visit with our physical friends, you feel so physical, you weren't even really acknowledging so much the non-physical part of you. So we began defining that there's you and there's your inner being. And then we began explaining to you that when you were Source energy before you came into this body, and even though you're in this body, that Source energy part of you still remains. So now we're wanting to connect the physical and the non-physical together. In other words, we're wanting you to be aware of both aspects. And then we explain that out here on this leading edge, you subject yourself to more contrast than the Source within you does. But in doing so, you define with more specifics what you want, which is what the evolution of all species is about. As you, from your leading edge, hands in the clay, in the trenches of creation, come to new conclusions about what you want, you are redefining and causing an evolution of all that is physical. But not separating physical from non-physical, expanding physical, because you can't expand physical without non-physical's focus, assistance, perspective, involvement. So then we begin talking to you about your emotions, which helps you to feel how aligned or not aligned you are. And of course, the ultimate experience. This is how we would define the optimum physical understanding and experience. I know that I come from Source, and that Source still exists while I am here, and that I have constant access to Source. Sometimes I deviate from my Source perspective in order to explore contrast in a more definitive way, more than Source can do, really.
I have enough contrast.
And as I explore that contrast in a more definitive way, I launch new rockets of desire. As I launch those new rockets of desire, Source rides those rockets, becomes them, becomes fully involved in them, experiences the full vibrational realization of them, and holds steady in the vibrational frequency of that expansion. And then I, in my physical form, deliberately choose a disc that allows me vibrational resonance with my furthest expansion. And because I've experienced complete resonance, complete vibrational alignment, now Source's realization and my realization are one. And that equals that appreciation that you were defining earlier. That's the whole picture.
I hear that you talk many times about just the grandness of our vortex, the infinite nature of our vortex. And I get that, especially when I see like the beauty in nature, or it just resonates with me. I get it. I understand that there is the hands in the clay, and then there is this aspect of Source that's just making it so beautiful or so great, and our capabilities are there.
Sometimes you do get it. That's when you're feeling those moments of appreciation. Sometimes you're not letting yourself get it. That's when you feel discouraged and like you've had enough contrast. So sometimes you're getting it, and sometimes you're not getting it.
But I feel that grandness is so distant from where I am.
Well, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But when you practice deliberately the allowing or the resonance with that which is Source, one of the things, let's start in another place, because this was a new practiced realization for Esther. She was like you, conceptually understanding it, but she discovered a new hands-on, more consistent recognition of it once Jerry made his transition into non-physical. So she's sitting and editing. Now this was an experience that she's had for years. And Jerry was in the other end of the bus or in the other end of the house, and they're working together and weaving in and out of one another's day, but mostly doing their own things, sort of rooting for each other, whatever they were doing, and then coming together through the day for different things, but mostly having singular experiences while in the presence of one another. So then Jerry made his transition into non-physical, and for quite a while, Esther's awareness of where he wasn't was so dominant that her missing of him was severe. And then through listening to the recordings that we were offering and through the application of her own application of things that she's been hearing from us, she stumbled across a realization that not only was Jerry, even though he is non-physically focused, was he not gone, but he was more present than he had ever been. That while his attention upon Esther and the work that they were doing together was divided when he was in his physical body, now his focus is not divided by any resistance of his own. Pure, powerful focus that when Esther allowed herself to stop missing him, she hooked up with a presence of him, a consciousness of him. his awareness of her and her awareness of him that was far beyond anything that she'd ever experienced when he was physically focused. So the result of it, and you have this experience all the time, it was the one that you were describing when you first sat down. The result of that is that when she's editing, she has editing, meaning listening back to the sound files, removing some of the coughs and whiskers and annoying aspects, and choosing the track titles that best represent in very few words what this segment is about and what this segment is about. She realized that she had a presence, a consciousness, a knowing that she knew was not her own. So then she began to realize that since he's always there. Now, Jerry, in this case, is representing the whole of what non-physical is, because we're all there. Always there. And when Esther is vibrationally up to speed with it, the clarity, the feeling of exhilaration, the feeling of all is wellness is indescribable. But that same constant presence of him, when she is not there, feels like grief or missing or lonely. And she began realizing, it was such a wonderful realization, that because she thought, and so did you, she thought that when he was there, she felt his presence, and when he was not there, she felt his absence. But there's no there and not there. Source is always there. You're the one allowing it or disallowing it. You're the one jumping on the disc that allows the full revelation of it or the not revelation of it. Does that make some sense to you? We want you to feel the fullness of Source in your moment. And we want you to realize that because Source is right there with you in your moments, that when you are vibrationally up to speed with it, that's when the world is bright and beautiful. That's when your appreciation of the specifics of this physical, tangible, manifested world is at its greatest, you see. So you can't separate yourself from that which is non-physical.
That was my next question. There is no separation. So
there is no separation, but there is a perception of separation when from time to time you find a block of thought that puts you on a disc that doesn't allow you the full connection and realization and resonance with it.
Okay.
Oh, don't you love knowing that? It's all about what you've chosen, but Source is always there for you, always there for you. Always there for you. Did we get to where you wanted to go?
I have more questions.
Oh.